and explore a rustic paradise. Discover some extraordinary fruit trees at the University of Puerto Rico's remarkable Jardín Botánico. And then travel to Portugal's Quinta de Calahau, a hallmark of Renaissance garden design. Join us for a refreshing world garden tour. On the west coast of New Zealand's South Island is the area of Queenstown, known for its breathtaking scenery. Queenstown is a popular tourist destination, and one of the most frequent stops on area tours is the beautiful and formal Spade Gardens. Owners Mary and David Spade built their gorgeous estate on 8 low-lying acres of former pasture land.
Started in 1984, 85. After we travelled, we then came back and we got a friend to help design the initial stages. And the house was being built at the same time, so it was integrated within the garden. And it took 2.5 years, 3 years to finish the planting.
The Spade Gardens are constructed in the European fashion of separate garden rooms, and the dramatic scenery provides a distinctive Kiwi setting.
There are many features in the garden, and they are varied. We're very fortunate to have the scenery all around us, which is, although that's nothing to do with the garden, it's just wonderful. It gives, I think, a greater deal of height. It gives you a greater feeling of being enclosed, and it's more wondrous.
The Spades began by taking advantage of natural contours in the land to create their gardens. Gentle rolls and swells separate areas, like the English-influenced cottage garden, which is enclosed by a circular hedge. Next door, the perennial garden is rife with delicate blossoms, like this periwinkle, and vibrant pink impatiens. The lovely rose garden, home to thousands of blooms, is next in the chain of garden rooms. Its beds are outlined with delicate pale blue camellias. Don't be fooled by all this seemingly effortless beauty, though. The Spade Gardens took years to complete, and planting was only the beginning. Maintenance is a daily job. However, the couple continues to draw tremendous enjoyment from their efforts.
Quite a lot of hard work, but enjoyable, because if you find a seedling that's self-sown, that for me is quite exciting. I mean, it just is exciting to find a seedling from some other plant roundabout, as long as it's a special plant, not sort of a weedy plant.
Ornamentation adds a decorative touch throughout the Spade Gardens, like these 100-year-old wrought iron gates. And this pastoral grouping, which serves as a whimsical reminder of the land's past function as a sheep farm. In a land known for its rugged extremes, the Spades have created a serene garden oasis.
I think it's very pleasant to live here in this area. We have lived previously on a farm further south, and it was, I think, a little bit, the weather wasn't quite as good as it is here. It's just peaceful. We enjoy looking at the hills and mountains and the ski field up there, the ski field over there. You look forward to the spring, and then you look forward to a plant coming out, and then you look forward to its being able to put the whole garden to bed again. I think that is the inspiration for keeping at it, keeping going.
Cannonballs, bishop's caps and candles, these are only a few of the unusual fruits we'll find growing in the Caribbean Commonwealth of Puerto Rico. And later step back in time in a historic Portuguese garden steeped in Renaissance elegance when World Garden Tour returns. World Garden Tour now travels to the University of Puerto Rico's Jardín Botánico, or Botanical Garden. The garden is a center for the study and conservation of Puerto Rican flora, as well as other exotic plants from around the world. Located in the midst of San Juan, This lush 75-acre forest features more than 200 species of tropical and subtropical vegetation. The plants are arranged throughout several different garden areas.
The Botanical Garden was founded in the year 1971 by the then President, Mr. Jaime Benitez. We have several types of gardens for you to show you, and starting with this one, the Aquatic Garden. Now, featuring the Aquatic Garden, we have different species of aquatic plants, starting with the Egyptian papyrus.
It was papyrus that the Egyptians first used to make paper. Red and pink ginger also cluster nearby. Named for its distinctively colored bark, the red palm is one of several trees found here in the Aquatic Garden. The rain tree is also found here. It is known as the rain tree because it is said that the Indians used to perform a rain dance around it. A native palm of Puerto Rico, this tree is said to resemble Puerto Rican women because of its graceful curves and its waist. Passing by a flood of brilliantly colored variegated shrubs like croton, the Jardin Botanico's graceful Monet Garden begins, just beyond the Aquatic Garden. Named in honor of French Impressionist Claude Monet, this garden is inspired by his paintings of serene lily ponds. Here in Puerto Rico, water lilies like these are referred to as clock plants because their blooms open at midnight and close at noon.
As you can see, we have a little bit of muddy water, but that's because we have had a lot of heavy rain lately, and that's why it's like that, and the rain just washes out the water, but the water is never like this. And as you can see in the water, we have another aquatic plant, which is called nelumbo here in Puerto Rico, and it looks a lot like the leaf from the water lilies, okay? But this is another species.
Here in the Monet Garden, there are more exotic trees, like the candle tree, a native of Panama, which bears these long, tapering fruits.
This is the cannibal tree, and the cannibal tree is from South America. And as you can see, why we call it the cannibal tree, because the fruit looks like a cannon, okay? Now, the cannibal tree, you don't eat this fruit. We have another fruit in Puerto Rico that is called mamey, and it looks just like the cannibal tree, okay? But in difference to the other one, this one you don't eat, and it has a very strong smell. This tree is called bishop's cap, and it's from tropical Asia. And they call it the bishop's cap because, as you can see, the fruit, it looks like a bishop's cap upside down. And the fishermen tend to use this a lot when they go fishing. They just put the fruit in the water because it looks like a coconut and it tends to float. So they throw the net on top of it to use to fish.
Many people think that the bamboo is a tree, but it is actually the world's tallest grass. Rows of it form a promenade that leads to the Jardin Botanico's next feature, a large sculpture garden.
In the year 1992, we celebrated the first sculpture symposium at the garden, where artists of international fame donated the sculptures to the garden. Now, this one is called The Walk Through the Guanacastes, and it's by a Bolivian named Ted Carrasco. And he called it that in honor of the trees that are around it, which are called guanacastes or monkey ear. The monkey ear is called that because of the seed. It looks like a monkey ear. Now, this one is called Synchromia boricua, and this is by a Venezuelan, which his name is Carlos Cruz Diaz. And it has a very special feature, which as you walk through the path, you can look straight at a certain angle, and you can see how it changes colors.
The sculpture garden also serves as a reminder of the Jardin Botanico's preservationist purpose. This work, composed by Puerto Rican artist Luz Undercluz, is called Woods. Although the artist envisions woods made of steel, the Jardin Botanico helps ensure that the rich diversity of Puerto Rico's plant life will be present for years to come. Next, World Garden Tour ventures across the Atlantic to Portugal to explore a Renaissance treasure.
3 different designers.
World Garden Tour now takes us to the gorgeous Renaissance Quinta de Calahau, which has graced Portugal's Arabida Peninsula since 1554. Located just south of Lisbon, Bacalhau was originally built by Braz de Albuquerque, son of Alfonso de Albuquerque, a famous Portuguese mariner. Inspired Inspired by Italian and Indian designs that Albuquerque had been exposed to during his travels, he commissioned a villa in the Renaissance style of 16th century Italy. Characterized by a tasteful sense of restraint, the balanced design of Bacalhau features open-air loggias and gardens where its residents can enjoy luxurious living as well as artistic and philosophical pursuits. The plan of the house, garden, and estate was based on a simple geometric pattern of squares, which gives an underlying unity to the entire grounds. For nearly 4 centuries, until 1937, Bacalhau remained virtually unchanged, although it had fallen into severe disrepair. Then the property was acquired by an American, Mrs. Herbert Scoville from Connecticut. She undertook and completed its restoration with such patience, skill, and attention to detail that the property is now recognized as the most important house and garden of the early Portuguese Renaissance.
The importance of this garden to Portugal is paramount because it's the first one designed. All historians have agreed about the house, and from the studies we have carried, it is clear that also the garden is the first one from which all the inspiration of other gardens came.
The first floor apartments of the house open onto a dramatic loggia, which is the ideal for a bird's eye view of the garden of carefully shaped boxwood below.
The box edges are a sculpture made of plant material. This is a start, and this sculpture requires a lot of maintenance, but is the right thing for a climate that is very arid. So Mrs. Scoville knew that topiary was the right thing to put as far as the maintenance of itself and also the dialogue with the Renaissance palace. The link between the palace and the garden was something new that was brought in this 16th century by the Renaissance gardens and that she followed. And this is part of it.
This remarkably ornate boxwood garden is arranged around a central fountain in the Italianate style. Although characterized by highly stylized parterres, the space exudes a calm elegance that provides an artful counterpoint to the home's simple geometric forms.
I think the around the garden here is first, I think, is designed for your eye, and a garden that is designed to match your eye or to content of your inspiration. You have to be clever enough that you look to a side and you turn around. It gives different effects all the time. I think it's a very I don't know technically what it means, but I think it's meaningful. That is like a painting. When some paintings you look today, look tomorrow, it looks like something new add to the paint. It depends on your mood, it depends on how you feel that day. And I think garden is very similar to that kind of thing.
Each parterre displays a different boxwood pattern.
The meanings are immediate. You have a star, you have an R, and you have some sort of a number there. So it's not really symbols, they are really meanings. And the R sends us to the time of Rei, R-E-I, which means king of Portugal.
Topiaries in the shape of slender obelisks also punctuate the courtyard garden. They highlight the garden's form when seen from above, and add height and interest when viewed at eye level. A high yew hedge balances a projecting wing of the house to enclose 3 sides of the space, lending a private, secluded atmosphere.
The final element are the walls around the gardens, which create a seclusion and a haven. And that's very Portuguese. We are not an arrogant culture. We are more a hidden culture. And so we like to keep our intimacy. And so that's why you don't find many books about Portuguese gardens.
Just beyond the courtyard garden stands a stately orange grove.
we are a country of small resources, so we use the two things, ornament and function, and the main tree for that is the orange tree. The orange tree was introduced in Europe by the Portuguese in the gardens. You have an orange grove here, and the orange grove is always evergreen. It's an evergreen in this climate. So you see almost like a lawn. That's why it is deep down. If you look at where it was put to grow, it's lower than the pavements. So you always see some sort of shrubby lawn of green the whole year, plus it produces oranges. So our small and scarcity of land in this country cannot dispense a land of no production for gardens, and therefore the orange trees are a key element in all Portuguese gardens, and they are here.
The next section of the Bacalhau Gardens bears a distinctly Eastern influence. This area is filled almost entirely by a large reflecting pool, like those found in India.
The reflecting pool over there is the most important element in this garden because it's not only unique, but it's an originality brought into Portugal through this garden. We don't exactly know the origins, but we know these kind of reflecting pools exist in India.
The pool's retaining walls are 2 feet in height, and the water level is unexpectedly high, which allows the pool to depict a more accurate reflection of its surroundings.
So, the matter of fact, if you visit India, you see some of the water when it stands still, you have a reflection, a perfect reflection. And if you go to that garden in a particular height, because the Portuguese at one time, they were shorter. So at a certain height, you see the perfect reflection of the 3 towers of the building on the pool.
While water is an important element of this garden's survival, this part of Portugal receives very little rainfall. When World Garden Tour returns, discover how gardeners maintain splendid beauty with only a small amount of water.
Wood floors require special...
World Garden Tour now returns to Portugal's Quinta de Calahau. As we've seen, these gardens are a luxuriant carpet of green boxwood, trees, and lawns. Few flowers grace the area with color, though. Healthy blooming plants require an abundance of water. For centuries, the Portuguese have circumvented semi-arid conditions by working with hardy, sun-loving plants that require little water. Their lessons are especially pertinent for gardeners in dry areas where lack of rainfall limits the range of plants that can survive.
The flowers that we can have here in this arid climate require a lot of water at the moment where we don't have rain. You have to remember we have 3 months, sometimes 4, without rain. So we stay away from flowers in the Portuguese gardens. We only use the minimum because water is a pressure element. So even roses that could be expected here are not here because they are not, they would have required a lot of maintenance. And so the choice of just a sculpture of green boxwood is the right choice for this garden, for this small amount of land.
The Bacalhau Garden introduces color through alternative means, like these decorative tiles.
The elements that were followed in our way of building gardens in Portugal were, first of all, the tiles. The tiles became an important element in the garden, and that's unique. You don't have it in Italian gardens or French gardens.
The tiles provide a bright counterpoint to the garden's greenery, and their glazed surface helps deflect heat from planters, protecting the root systems within and preventing excessive evaporation. Because water is such a precious element here, it is treated with care. Bacalhau's large reflecting pool is much more than a decorative element. It also serves an important purpose by doubling as a holding tank for irrigation water. The pool is an ingenious blend of function and form that helps the Bacalhau garden flourish.
To me, water, it's so important, not only for the meaningful, some people say it's very relaxing. Some people say that it's peaceful. Well, I say that is surviving, because a garden without or human without the water, we are nothing. So it's more, probably everybody's right. They all mean a lot, but to me it means life. Water, a garden has to have water and the plants go together. We can't do without each other.
From the simple Renaissance serenity of Portugal's Quinta de Calahau, to Puerto Rican botanical beauty, to a scenic New Zealand retreat. We thank you for traveling with us and hope you'll join us again next time for another World Garden Tour.